everybody. Welcome to miamilitpodcast, episode 2. My name is Jenny.
And I'm Gene.
Today we're talking about Dr. Brian Weiss, who is the author of Many Lives, Many Masters, and a variety of other books surrounding the same topic.
So I guess my curiosity is, why did you want to talk about this specifically?
So I came across this book about, I want to say like 15 years ago. And I thought, okay, cool, interesting. A doctor that did some research on past lives. I'll read it. And as I was reading the book, he was going to do a talk at a synagogue here in the area. And I got tickets. And we went, and I got to meet him. And he, how do I describe this? He's a person that seems to be at such peace, at such level of peace. He like radiates, showcases, emotes this sense of just tranquility that I was super perplexed by. And I've had the pleasure of seeing the Dalai Lama speak. So I've seen people that are up there when it comes to just being Zen, right? But Dr. Weiss was super impressive in his ability to just showcase his energy. So after that, I, started getting really immersed into his work, and it hasn't left me all these years.
And he was genuine about it, right? Like he was genuine about his tranquility.
It wasn't anything that he spoke about. It was something that you felt, when you were standing close to him, when he shook your hand, like you just felt this sense of peace.
Yeah. And I guess it has something to do with, you are what you do hours on the day, right? And it's like you spend 8 hours, whatever you do on a 9 to 5 in a cubicle or something like that, then you're going to be that, right?
Right.
So it's, I guess if you can just inform everybody and I guess catch me up to speed on exactly what Brian Weiss does before we talk about the actual book. So what exactly does he do?
So Dr. Brian Weiss is a psychiatrist, and he is, or was, I don't know if he's still practicing right now. He was a practicing psychiatrist in Mount Sinai here in Miami Beach.
Yeah. So what exactly does Brian Weiss do?
Okay, so he uses hypnotherapy to help his patient and all these symptoms that she had. Like she had extreme anxiety, she had extreme fear of drowning to the point where she couldn't swallow medication, like all these crazy fears. And they determined through her past life memories that they were all connected to past life issues that she was carrying on. And the question is, well, is that real, or is that like a subliminal message for treatment? But if the result is positive, does it matter?
I feel like those are two separate questions.
They kind of are.
Yeah, like one question is, all right, for one, is it real? Because it kind of sounds like already that it sounds like crazy talk. It sounds like...
It does. You definitely need to be open-minded if you're going to approach something like this.
Yeah, because, we live in a time where we have, let's just face it, limitless information at the palm of our hands.
Right.
And we have access to this information very easily, and it influences the way that we want to receive information. So we want scientific evidence. In fact, like, we want to base our decisions off of science. We respect science in this way. And this seems very unscientific in a way.
Right.
So I guess it's about bridging that gap, so to speak, of like between this stuff that, I would just be honest, it seems very, very real. It feels like, my gut feeling tells me that there is something else out there. That there's more to life than just this physical stuff that's around us. Like there's more to us than that. And it's there's plenty of examples that we can talk about. But like near-death experiences or
right.
or things like that. And it definitely feels like that there is more to life than just what we can see, what we can taste, what we can see from our five senses. But explaining that in a way that is credible scientifically, I think that that is something that many people may not be open to.
Definitely.
I mean, I guess it's like, I mean, do you think that that's worth exploring today?
For sure. I mean, we are going to have questions that are going to be with us for as long as mankind exists, right? That have been with us, and I don't think will ever leave us. Where did we come from? Why are we here? Where are we going? What happens after? I don't think those questions will ever go away.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think there are a lot of people that try to get rid of those questions too.
Right.
You know, because it's not within their general interests, and I guess it's also scary.
For sure.
It's also pretty scary. I mean, especially with what he goes through with his book, because at least like when you think about like past lives, you know, and you think about, well, do I have a soul? You know,
right.
like do I have a soul? Is it real? Where is the soul? Right? Like is it something? Can I go into like can I go to the doctors and get a body scan and say like, all right, there it is. It's right there. That's the soul. And if we can't do that, there's this big question in philosophy where, well, a philosophical question in general is just like, is it even worth trying to find that answer? But it brings me back to, I think about what you were saying before, where it's like, well, if it brings a positive result.
Right.
Right.
And I think sometimes the question is more valuable than the answer itself.
Whoa.
Because a question, right, it can take you down a certain path that no matter what the answer is, that path that you traveled is what's going to make a difference, if that makes sense.
Because the question is more important than the actual answer.
Yeah.
I mean, because, I don't know. I want answers.
Well, so do I.
I want answers.
But
like because I'm one of those. I'm a firm believer that if we're capable of asking the question, I think we're definitely capable of finding an answer.
For sure. But if the quality of your question isn't there, will it take you to the path that the answer you're seeking is?
I guess it depends on the question, right?
You know what I'm saying? So that's why I say, like, sometimes the question's much more important than your answer, because without the right question, your answer could be anything.
Yeah. And so it's like, so what is Weiss's, at least because there's too many questions out there, right? It's like, well,
for sure.
What's Weiss's question? I mean, because he wants to help people. He wants to give, he has this strange hybrid type of, if I can explain it, or if I understand it correctly, correct me if I'm wrong. He has this hybrid type of hypnotherapy that involves hypnosis, right? So he hypnotizes his patients to try to recall past life experiences.
Well, it didn't start off necessarily that way.
Okay.
And the way he describes hypnosis is a very relaxed state in which you can focus on memories that you otherwise may not be able to bring up to the surface, right? And when
memories like what? I'm sorry.
Just anything in your, from your past. It could be 5 days ago. It could be 5 years ago. Just anything that may be bugging you, but you may not be able to remember right now. And if you enter this relaxed state when you can actually focus and you can, move everything aside, all your worries, all your concerns, and just focus on that, you can address that memory and say, okay, look, this happened to me and it created this fear, or it bothered me, or whatever the case may be.
So like a repressed memory of like a trauma or something.
Kind of like that, and not necessarily, but yes, along those veins. So when he tried that with this patient, from my understanding, he wasn't looking for past life anything. He just wanted to see in this life, in this calendar year, whatever the case may be, if something had happened to her that she was repressing that could help him help her. And she just started describing things that were hundreds of years before. And that's when he figured out, okay, wait, like, this isn't this life. And obviously he's a doctor, so he's very scientific and analytical. So I think it took a long time to figure out what all of that meant. Because at first his first thought was, well, she's making this up, or she's trying to make herself feel better, but it's working. She is feeling better.
Yeah, and I guess for everyone listening in, I do want to emphasize his credentials that he puts in the book. So we can put a link to the book where you can buy, or a link to the Kindle or to the PDF or whatever they have online these days. I don't
Audible.
Yes. Oh yes, Audible. Yes.
Yeah.
So he graduated Phi Beta Kappa magna cum laude from Columbia University in New York, 1966. He received his MD in 1970 from Yale University, New York University Bellevue Medical Center. Returned to Yale to get his residency in psychiatry. Became associate professor 4 years after, which is pretty impressive. That's pretty hard to do.
Yeah. He
was appointed chief of psychiatry at a large university-affiliated hospital in Miami. Okay, by the time that he started with this book, he published 37 scientific papers and book chapters in that field, which of course are readily available. So that's definitely credible.
Yes.
So he checks out as a scientist. So he's a credible scientist, psychiatrist, pharmacologist. So he's coming into this whole other realm of study, from a scientific perspective. So first of all, it's interesting that someone is even capable of doing that. And then number two, it's sort of raises this interest of whether there are some alternative methods to curing people and helping people. Because he has had success with this style of therapy with other patients, okay. So I guess it's kind of like, well, what exactly did you get out of this, really?
Well, it's a big question.
I think it's worthy of exploring.
Yes, for sure. I mean, I don't want to say I'm like a past life not expert, but like, I don't know the word I'm looking for. I definitely got that, like you said before, there's a lot more. It just felt like confirmation, because you grow up and, whether you come from a religious background or not, you see people believe certain things and they might be different from you. And again, I think this book was just confirmation that there's a lot more to be explored. There's a lot more than what we think. And to see someone like him, who's a scientist, who's a researcher, who's a doctor, approach it, just kind of goes to show, well, these topics are valuable, and maybe more people in all sorts of fields should be looking into it, not just the new age people or whatever we want to call them.
The woke.
Yes, not just them.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, it's like what I was telling you before we started recording, that this was a gateway for me to study philosophy.
Right.
Because it showed me that there are important questions in this life, and that there are different ways of trying to answer these questions. And these questions matter. Like, there's some questions that you can't put in the microscope. You can't put in the test tube. You can't put it in a particle accelerator, right? Like, you have to find some other way of answering these questions, but they're just as valuable. It's like, what is the meaning of life, right? Like, what is love, right? Like, how do we answer these questions in a non-scientific way, but still find them to be credible? It's like, maybe results is one thing, right? It's like, if your method of treatment is helping other people, then I guess we can say that might be credible, right? But I feel like to the skeptic, that might not be enough.
That's true. But if they're a skeptic, what is enough? What would be enough for them? You know?
I guess
I don't know.
I guess it would be like, all right, so this, because this is already a crazy enough idea, right? It's finding through hypnosis, treating past life trauma. Right. So like in the book, like you talked about like fear of drowning, right? And it turns out that a past life of hers drowned, and then that's when the past life drowned, like her past life drowned, and then that's why she's afraid of water now, right? So she's afraid of drowning. So that's, one can make a lot of I mean, if you're a skeptic, right, I can play devil's advocate right now.
For sure.
It's all right, that's kind of a big stretch, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of a big stretch, and it's like I bet we can make a lot of other connections beyond that, right? For example, it's like, is it really a past life? Is it really a past life? Right. Are you sure it's not something else? Like, if you're under hypnosis, wasn't it just some sort of like psychological hallucination or something like that, right?
Yeah, your mind just trying to help you out by giving you all these ideas or answers, Yeah. That's super credible. And I think it's important to have these kind of questions, to question everything, because why not? That's why we're here. And
yeah, I mean, people can't even interpret dreams correctly.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So this would be super difficult to do. But then you see other cases, other scientists who have furthered his research, and they, like kids who have past life memories, and they go and they actually verify all the information, and they find out that the person this kid is talking about was real, and they did die in that manner, and they, all those specific details.
Wait, so that has actually happened?
Yes. There have been not plenty, but of a couple of cases where kids have all of a sudden start talking about these experiences, and scientists have gone and figured out, okay, yeah, this person's saying the truth. How did they know all that? There's no connection in the family. It's not like it's an uncle that they heard mom talk about. It's someone on the other side of the world, and yet they know everything about this person. How did that happen? So it's a big question.
Yeah, because there's other subjects like that too, like xenoglossy, which is when you speak a language that you've never heard, right?
Right.
It'd be kind of hard to prove that now, though, because we have like the internet and stuff, right? And we have like it's pretty easy to listen to other languages, right? But at least back then, maybe the window of opportunity for studying that is kind of over, right? Because there's too much skepticism about that. But there are instances of that too. And I guess it's does that really help us though? Like, does it really help us to try to figure that stuff out? I mean, what do you think?
I mean, if you were to know that this is not it, right? That you came from someplace and you're headed someplace, would that make a difference to you?
Well, it's like if there's a heaven and there's an earth. I mean, heaven and there's a hell, right? We are in this earth. Well, this earth is our living hell, right?
Probably, yes. Surely
so
now.
If there's a heaven and there's a hell, that's definitely going to influence, and we know for sure there's a heaven and there's a hell. It's definitely going to make me change my behavior. Or at least it's definitely going to influence my behavior, right? So I do believe there is a heaven. I do believe that there is a hell. So that definitely has an influence. But if I knew for sure, too, that, and if I could prove it, too, then definitely, right?
Yeah.
But like, no one's died and come back,
Jesus
came back, right? Krishna came back, right? And then there are these... Was
it Osiris? He came back also, didn't he?
Yeah, Osiris was nuts. Osiris was, he lost an... Oh, no, that was Horus. He lost an eye.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Osiris... Oh, yeah, Osiris lost his... he lost his member.
That's right.
And that's
my God. I forgot about that part.
That's why the Nile floods.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, and then that's another thing that he actually talks about in this book, and it's kind of like it makes me question whether or not this is valuable for us or not, because he relates this to a Jungian collective unconscious.
Right.
And so I guess it's if you want to explain for everyone what the collective unconscious is, for anyone who doesn't know.
Okay, the shortest way to put it, it's like a universal, it's kind of like a data center where all of our universal experiences can be tapped into. Like if everyone could download their memories, experiences into this database, and you can just go in there and, take it, grab one, or I think that would be like the easiest way to explain it. Does that make sense?
So it's like a consciousness, like internet or something?
Kind of, yeah. It would be like the interweb for consciousness. And, if we could just tap into it, which according to Jung we can, especially in our dreams, we all at the end have all these shared experiences that bind us, no matter our culture, time, language barriers, all of that. It transcends all of that, right? The human condition knows no bounds. So that would be, I think, the easiest way.
And I've always understood it in two ways. I always understood it in sort of the sociological aspect of it. So it's like human beings always have a need for like monuments, and like always had a need for like building tall things. Like what is it, the male dominance, the male dominance for them. We always need a phallus everywhere, right? We need obelisks, we need tall towers, right? Many cultures around the world have the Madonna, right? They have the mother and the child image. Multiple symbols are the same throughout cultures. Right. So there is that. Like I always understood it in that way. And then the only way to kind of explain it is that there has to be some underlying drive for us to have these means of expressions, right?
Right.
So I always understood it. And then I also always understood it from a biological perspective. And it kind of reminds me of like of Nietzsche too. It always like makes me think of like, all right, so there is some underlying drive behind this, right? And in the biological sense, it's like all right, there's the need to survive, right? There's like Nietzsche says, there's this will to power, right? There's this need to survive, power, reproduce. There's this need for us that there are motivating factors, right? And then we all share those factors too.
Right.
So, but I don't think that's what Jung had in mind, right?
I don't think so. I mean, I'm not an expert on Jung, but what I have studied, it's more psychological components to it, in having the shared experience, which is why, like you said, most cultures share the need for monuments, and it's our need for permanence, right? Our need to make sure that we're here in some way, shape, or form, way after we're not.
Yeah, and it's like, and this is a human experience that happens throughout all of humanity, right? And it's like, well, and that's what's kind of makes me curious about this, because it's like, all right, do these experiences that humanity have had throughout antiquity, and they're sort of building up this collective unconsciousness that he calls it, right? So they're building up this collective unconsciousness, and then it's like the database gets getting bigger and bigger and bigger, theoretically speaking, right? So there's more information to tap into, right? And I think that's why a lot of people are really, really interested in psychedelics.
Yeah.
Because it's probably a good, I see it as I've never tried psychedelics.
Neither have I.
I really want to.
I don't.
I really want to.
I'll wait to hear from your experience.
Yeah, no, and it's like I want to like jump. I want to like jump through hoops, right? Because because some of them intrigue me more than others. Because of these from like friends' experiences, what you read and stuff like that. The experiences, like some of them appeal to me more than others, right? So it's like I want to do ayahuasca before I do LSD.
Well, I was going to say, if I were ever to do one, which I don't want to, but if I ever would want to, that's the only one I feel like I would try.
Oh, ayahuasca.
Just because the Peruvians have it down to a science.
Yes.
It's not just here, take this thing. They really seem to address the spiritual part of it with the physical part of it. And that's what I think makes it work and special and unique. And they figured that out thousands of years ago. So they know what they're doing.
Yeah. And that spirituality, it's real. It exists, whether we can explain it or not. And later on we can talk about if we can explain it or not, but it is real. And when people do have the experiences with psychedelics, the way to describe it is sort of like they're tapping into this database, right? And it's some people experience the masters, from the title of the book, Many Lives, Many Masters. Some people actually experience them, right? Some people see their spirit guides. Some people see their this whole other aspect to humanity that we can't get in the physical. And I guess we can think of it maybe like a shortcut, but I don't think that's fair either. But it's definitely makes me curious as to how well we are able to tap into it. So there's other means, right? There's meditation, there's yoga, there's
just whatever religious practice you ascribe to. I think the goal would be to get to that point. And whether you call that a relationship with God or these beings, it's up for debate. A name is a name, right? I don't know.
Yeah. No, and like a lot of people, when they talk about like near-death experiences, for example, it's like a lot of them see the same things. Right. They see a tunnel. They see a light at the end of it. They usually see some figure, right? And then, boom, they come back, right? So they haven't died, but they've been near it.
Which is super interesting because if you go through the hero's journey, especially in literature, for men and women, we have these specialized rituals when we're on the verge of becoming, a man or a woman. And I think it kind of mimics that like huge life transition, which sounds a lot like walking down the tunnel towards this big thing.
So, oh my God, I love how you put that. So the traveling through this tunnel of life.
Right.
And so it's like, what's like at the end? What do you think is like at the end of that light?
I don't know. I mean, I hope a party. You're here. Yay. You made it.
I mean, it's supposed to be paradise, right?
I guess.
It's supposed to be paradise, or at least depending on what you believe in. But we feel like it's real. I mean, or at least it's hard to describe because there's a lot of faith that's involved.
But here's my question, and it may be kind of silly, but honestly, it's a real question. Isn't science faith-based?
Oh, yes. There's so that's a pretty interesting topic, because a lot of people don't really realize that. And so when they think they're talking scientifically, they're actually talking very much
faith.
Yeah, very much.
Scientifically.
Yeah.
It's not a word, but we'll make it one for now.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's like so a lot of who had a lot of problem with the scientific perspective, medieval Catholics.
Yes.
So, for example, medieval Catholics, like for example Aquinas, they had this really big issue with this idea of a natural law, which is, we know what scientific laws are, like Newton's third law Newton's third law of physics. All these laws of physics are laws of nature that we have. But if you study science is always about change. You're never supposed to think that the science itself is indestructible, like it's impenetrable, right? We're always expecting scientific laws to change. So then what makes it a law? Right? Like what makes it that like we believe this without a shadow of doubt? You know what really got that down? You ever watch It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia?
No, I didn't.
You really need to watch it. There's this one episode. It's forewarning. It's explicit warning content. So there's an episode where they kind of have like a little trial because Danny DeVito's in it. So Danny DeVito, he's driving his car and he rear ends his son, and then his son spills his bowl of cereal in the car. So he wants his dad to pay for the damages, but it's like, who eats a bowl of cereal in a car, right? So who's really?
Oh wait, but this is a grown-up kid?
No, yeah, this is an adult show. So yeah.
No. But that his son is he?
Yeah. He's an adult. So he's in his car eating a bowl of cereal. So it's like, who eats a bowl of cereal in a car, right? So the trial is like they're amongst themselves who's responsible for the damages. And one of the characters, he's a really religious character, and they want to use him as a witness. But it's like, oh, is he really credible? Because he has all these beliefs on God and stuff like that, right? So he sounds like a crazy person to all these atheists, right? So part of the trial is him proving his authenticity in his belief in God.
Okay.
And when he's explaining it, he's like, oh, science is always wrong sometimes. So he points out points in history when it's like, all right, like, for example, Aristotle was considered to be the most intelligent man who's ever lived. But then he also believed that the earth was the center of the universe, right? Yeah. So he was wrong, you know. Then he says like, so he has this little clipboard that with their images, and then there's like a magnet that he goes, oh, so he shows Aristotle, and he's like, all right, he makes him look like a bitch, and he puts the word he puts the word bitch on there. So he showed Isaac Newton. Oh, Isaac Newton was thought to be the smartest person ever, but then he also died eating mercury. So he looks like a bitch. But
wasn't he also looking for the Philosopher's Stone?
Yeah, he was also looking for the Philosopher's Stone. You know, so
which I mean, I don't know if that's that makes him crazy.
Kind of. I mean, alchemy is dead. But the point is that he was showing how science is progressively changing and it's expected to change.
Yeah.
And so what's the reason why we believe science so much? And without even doing our own proper research, right?
Right.
It's like we kind of rely on scientists to do the research for us, and then we don't actually go out and do the research ourselves.
It's true. I think we want facts so badly, but there are some things that there aren't facts for yet as of now. And science starts off as a belief, right? You have a hypothesis and you sort of have faith in that hypothesis. You're trying to prove it, meaning whatever your faith is, you're looking for facts for that. So to say that only science is the only approach, I think it belittles the whole thing too much.
And it really limits our experience of the world, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Because there's so much more than just looking at things from a scientific perspective. And in my opinion, I mean, you can disagree with me if you want, it sort of like takes away some of the meaning of it, right?
For sure.
Like, yeah. I mean, like, if you think about it just like in a things in just a scientific way, right? So it's like death, for example, you know? So if there are past lives or not, right? And do we carry that burden with us, right? The burdens from our past lives, right? I can explain, for example, a lot of the anxiety and depression that's out there right now. For sure. Right? Yeah. But if you're looking at it from just a scientific perspective and not a spiritual one, you know, scientists are still lost. Yeah. There's still too many hypotheses out there for there to be a definitive answer. I think it would be interesting for scientists to study our spiritual side a little more, especially from these cultures like the Peruvians, you know, the Egyptians, the Nigerians. They have thousands of years of experience into that side of us, and they're performing rituals and doing things that to us may look like, what the heck is going on? What are they doing? These people are crazy. But it works. And why does it work? And I think that another reason is that people are afraid of the dark side of the spirituality too. Like, a lot of people associate, you know, religion in general with superstition and horrid acts, you know, like crusade, like backwards thinking. Yeah, human sacrifice, you know, the Inquisition, you know, things like that. But science has that history too. Mm-hmm. That's true. Yeah, like especially the psychology, you know, so yes. The invention of the lobotomy, right? It's like women, you know, any symptom you were, what do they call us? Oh my God, a witch? No, well, yeah, but, burn the witch. I can't remember. It started with an H. Nope, cannot think of it. Hysterical. Yeah. But that's a woman thing?
Yeah.
Really? I think you can be a man and be hysterical.
Nowadays you can, but in the beginning of the field, it was a term for women. Like anything, you were just hysterical. It's okay, you're hysterical. And women were left to live in tiny rooms for the rest of their life just because they were having mental health issues and nobody could figure out what the heck is happening. So they're just labeled, you're hysterical or you're sexually oppressed. And
can you imagine like being like in those times and like having schizophrenia?
No. That's probably like somebody's worst nightmare because there was no help. It was a death sentence. You were locked up and forgotten about, and that was it. And heavily medicated so you wouldn't cause any trouble. You were basically a prisoner until you died.
Yeah. No, science science in general just has its really, really dark sides. You know, I was reading up on, you know, plague doctors and stuff. And so they were like the inventors of, well, at least the inventors of the ideas of the hazmats and then hazmat suits. And then they couldn't do anything,
right?
You know, for them because they didn't have the science that we have now. And then they were just had these walking sticks that were also used as like the pokers to just kind of like move people around and stuff like that, and they just let them to kind of die, right? And so it's like, what was the point of that? And it's like, so just to for the progression of science, right? Or it's like to make humanity feel good. So it's like, I think it's an unfair charge,
right?
So it's like a double-edged sword, but if anything, for us to try to find these truths, we kind of have to get over that, right?
Yeah.
Or is that insensitive? Is that insensitive to say?
I wouldn't say it's insensitive. I would say it's realistic. You kind of, if you really want to dive in there, you really need to just get over it, like you said, and move on. Don't allow all these Western biases, like it's witchcraft or it's, you know, sorcery, to get to you. And I think that's a big deal with Dr. Weiss. He had to battle that. Am I scientific or am I giving into these ideas that make me look crazy? And I think, especially now, with all the research that we're able to do, it would be very beneficial if our scientists could just put that aside.
Like share the spotlight, right?
Right.
I mean, I think it's also the job of the spiritualists too. Like, I think the spiritualists...
So you think that a scientist wouldn't be able to complete the job unless they had that side to them?
Well, what's interesting is that most scientists I know personally are religious.
Right.
You know, so it's...
Wasn't Einstein extremely religious?
Yeah. Most scientists I know are extremely religious. It's sort of like they're kind of self-aware of it too.
Yeah.
Right. But at least in like the when it comes to figuring out what's out there and what's real and what's not real, it's sort of like they're willing to kind of push that to the side,
right.
At least for the sake of the academia side of it, which again is like kind of impressive, like what Weiss does, you know, to like publish something like this despite the academic pressures.
Right.
But what I mean is I think that sort of the spiritualists kind of have the burden of proof on this one.
Yeah.
I feel like if we are going to return to our spirituality, I think the spiritualists have like a case to make.
For sure. Do you think it has anything to do with religion or it's just your spiritual component?
Personally, I think human beings just have a natural thirst or like kind of a curiosity for it. Even like even people who would perceive as atheists really are just more like on the agnostic side, right? So it's like, it's sort of like a little fallacy begging the question, right? It's like just like even engaging in the conversation just proves that there's at least some curiosity within it, right? Like I don't care if you're Richard Dawkins, I don't care if you're Bill Maher, right? You're engaging with the question, right? So it's like, all right, so there's something there, right? And then if you want to make the case for why it's not, then okay, that's your business, but you at least you're aware that there's something there, right? So I think that it's that, but I think that if they're going to do us any good, I think they have to re-earn our trust, at least the spiritualists, Because, I mean, think about it. Scientists, they've given us PlayStations. They've given us air conditioning. They've given us
trips to the moon.
The trips to the moon. Like,
yeah, for sure. For sure. They definitely have a leg up on the race. But it's interesting.
It's like, I think the spiritualists have to give us something.
Yeah.
Right? They have to throw us a bone, you know?
Right.
And at least if like what Weiss is doing, he's like, you know, giving therapy. I don't think he's practicing anymore, but at least like giving therapy, like actually helping patients therapeutically through an alternative method with actual lasting results.
Right. Where they're not left, addicted to Valium or whatever it is they give people to relax. It's a big deal, I would say. It shouldn't be ignored because it's not just it works, but then, like you said, you have lasting effects. It's not temporary.
So do you believe in reincarnation?
Yes, I do.
Why?
Why not?
Why not?
I there's no reason for me not to believe.
You see, and that's what I mean. I think the spiritualists need to give me something. I need
for sure. And I've been there, but now I feel like, I think it would be too simplistic to say that it ends at a certain point and that's it.
It sort of reminds me of the life force. So, and it's kind of like, it kind of makes me think of the history of why science and spirituality sort of drifted apart when they used to be the same thing.
Yes.
They used to be science, religion, philosophy, they all used to be the same thing.
Well, yeah, we used to have our priests conducting our science.
Exactly.
And
exactly.
you know.
And it makes me think of the life force. So scientists or, priests or, they're all the same person. They used to look for where is in the body the life force, or like the soul or something like that. Rene Descartes thought it was in the pineal gland of the brain, right? So they're looking for this life force. How is it? Where do we find this life source? Where the life force? Where is it in the body? They never found it. And then it wasn't until later that they discovered that, all life is just the right organizations of organic compounds. So if you get organic compounds and organize them in the right way, then that's what life is. Right. But there is no, like, you can have a body, because they used to think of death as like, all right, there's a body there, and then the life force just left. Right. And then it's like, no, it's not that the life force left. It doesn't exist. It's that there's this chemical organization in the body that it's not there anymore. That chemistry is disorganized, right? And then that's what we call death. But then that's also scary because where's my soul in this picture, right? Where is my reincarnated self, right? Like if I did have a past life or something like that. And it seems pretty conflicting. And there are like so many cultures around the world that do believe in reincarnation. Right.
Yeah, and cultures that have been around for thousands of years, they got to know something, right? I think it would be very presumptuous for us to think that we're the ones that got it right.
Well, I don't know who we are because...
Well, I mean, we like Western culture.
Oh, yeah, Western culture. Know? I mean, Western culture got a lot of things wrong, too.
Exactly. So yeah, that's exactly what I mean. I think we need to be a little bit more open-minded, especially when it comes to this kind of stuff, because all these other cultures have been doing this for thousands of years. They have to know something. They picked something up along the way, I would hope.
Yeah, I'm still on the fence.
Yeah.
And
that's not just fine, but I think necessary to...
I wish I had an answer because I'm still on the fence because on the one hand, it's like, all right, there are things like what's happening in Many Lives, Many Masters, right? There's things like that happening. There are entire cultures that base their being and existence off of it. And if anything, we can kind of relate it to, I can maybe kind of relate it to my own life in a way. But then the problem is that there's so many other explanations. Like, for example, why am I afraid of something, right? The nature versus nurture thing. And then it's conflicting, right?
It's definitely not as simple if you're a person that likes to question everything. You know, how you and I are. We're those kind of people. So it's not easy to arrive at a certain belief and stick by it no matter what. Which I think it's healthy. It's healthy to have your beliefs challenged, because if they're correct, you'll be back where you started. And if they're wrong, well, now you've let go of a belief that doesn't serve you, that is not correct. But it's tricky.
Yeah. And I think there's hope. Because what's kind of cool, especially with psychology, is that psychologists need a lot of help from philosophers, professional philosophers. They exist, don't worry.
Yeah.
Professional philosophers. You're here. Yeah, I guess you can say I'm a professional philosopher, as weird as that sounds, right? But yeah, philosophy, that's kind of one of the reasons why philosophy departments in universities still exist, because depending on what type of philosophy you do, you need to work with that other department, right? So if you're a historian of philosophy, you got to work with the history department. If you're a metaphysician, you got to work with the physics department, right? Right. Because we sort of bounce off each other. Yeah. And so when it comes to the mind, right, and psychologists need a lot of help from philosophers, because there are questions like that psychologists can't really answer. Right. So like near-death experiences, past lives, out-of-body experiences, which I've experienced, right? I once did yoga with my sister, and at the end of it, right, I thought I was just doing like, the stupid Malibu, like we're gonna dog facing down, like I'm on vacation, I'm just like, all right, let me do some yoga, right? Right. But nah, she like dimmed the lights, put the incense, like
she really went for it.
She went for it all, and it was intense. It was intense. And then like I mean, literally what I saw was at the end of it, she was like, after she did the little, I forgot what it's called. It's the little bell thing that you like rub around. I'm ignorant to this stuff. I'm sorry.
So am I. I know what you're talking about, but I don't remember what it's called.
Yeah, it's the what? The sound bowl. Yeah, there you go. So it's a sound bowl. So it's a and then the ding ding, and then you do the sound bowl. And then as I was like experiencing that, I literally had a vision where I started shifting through animals, running through like a woods. And then so first I was a wolf, and then I was like traveling through and I'm not high, anybody, in case everybody's wondering.
It's just coffee.
It's just coffee, I swear. And I wasn't high then either. Like I was just literally like thinking I was just doing some regular exercise.
You were going on a natural high.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because that's what these spiritual experiences are, right?
Exactly.
And so, yeah, first I was a wolf, like running through the woods. And then I got to a canyon, and I couldn't get past that canyon. And then, I saw an eagle flying. And then it's like my soul shifted from the wolf into the eagle, and then the eagle's flying, right? Then I reached up into the mountain, but I couldn't fly that high anymore. So then I became a goat. I shifted to a goat, and I was like, hopping around. And then I got to the summit, and then I didn't know what animal I was by that point, because at that point I was just freaking out. And then I saw this figure of like a giant, for me it felt like the only word is like a golem, right? If anyone. Okay. So it's like this big statue thing, golem thing, and then its eyes lit up. And then it communicated to me, but not through words. And that's a cool thing about human beings too, that we can talk to each other without words and understand each other, right? Like body language, and right. That's what Jung meant by collective unconsciousness, right? Like we can communicate with each other through this. Like just sit in, nice little experiment for everybody. Just sit in silence for like 5 minutes with someone. You can really get to know them, right? Yeah. And then basically what that thing communicated to me was that I'm on the right path in my life. And at that point, I was young. I was like, I think I was like 23 or something like that. And I was like, I had just graduated from college, and then I graduated with a degree in philosophy. I'm like, what am I going to do with my life, right? Right. And then it told me, like, not through words or anything, but everything was okay. Yeah. And my sister ended up shaking me, and then and I was crying.
Oh, that sounds nice.
It was freaky. I'm never doing yoga again.
No,
Yeah, no, my girlfriend wants me to do yoga all the time, and I'm like, nope.
You should.
That stuff is spooky.
But it's good. It's good for you.
I mean, it's like, what am I talking about? Like, I want to do psychedelics, you know? It's
yeah, but you want to do yoga. That makes no sense. So here's the question. Was that like a genuine experience in the sense of where you're really like traveling through all these animals, or was that your mind creating an experience for you to give yourself an answer to your own question? And does it matter?
I think it does matter. Because if it's the latter, then it's just, you can just explain everything through chemicals and biological, you know, my serotonin levels or my adrenaline or my hormonal levels in the brain at the time, my neurotransmitter inhibitors, whatever, you know, I can talk about it in that biological sense.
Right.
But then it sort of loses its significance, at least to my actual experience, because frankly, I really don't care if it was something like that, right? If you want to talk about it that way, you know, like, okay, fine, but that's not what mattered to me. What mattered to me was like, the goddamn thing said
the value in the experience.
Exactly. So I think it does matter if it's just that. But do I believe that it was just that? No. Honestly, no. I felt like there was something. I felt like, and I don't think I'm crazy.
No,
I don't think. I think I can reason. I can rationalize. You know, like I think I'm not. I don't think I'm the most irrational person. Is what I'm trying to say. But I do think that there was something extra level about it, or what's the word, supernatural. Yeah. About that experience.
I think as much as we can try to make sense of things for facts, if you go out of your way to deny that there's a part of us that we don't understand yet and we can't explain, you're doing a huge disservice to yourself, because there's just something that you're shutting down and you don't know where it could take you. And I don't mean that like physically take you. I mean just for your mental health, for your spiritual health. You don't know how beneficial it can be if it's completely shut off.
And it's pretty easy to shut it off.
Absolutely, especially in our side of the world, in our culture. This is crazy talk. And it's for the weak who can't handle, you know, the hardships of life, which I don't think it's true. I actually think to be a spiritual person, you need to be a very strong person, because it's work. It takes work. Especially if you're a thinking person, because it challenges your everyday preconceptions.
Yeah, like I think that it takes a lot of work, because if anything, I'm the one scared to do yoga again, you know? So I think that it takes a lot of work to delve into it. And I think that, you know, that can scare people. And I think that it's like, all right, is there the big G upstairs? You know, like I think that can scare people too, because a lot of people don't really act the most holy, right? You know, and it's like we all make mistakes and stuff like that. And
I think that when we try not to place our faith or our spirituality into ourselves, into that path that can take us to wherever, you know, we end up looking for some place to place it with. And we have the rise of cults and you know, treating celebrities like gods and just placing someone in that spot just because we need it. And if we don't fulfill it, someone will fulfill it for us, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. It feels like a void that needs to be filled.
Right. Yeah.
By some way, shape, or form. If you don't want to fill it with God or spirituality, you fill it with science, right? It's like but there is a need to explain what's going on with us. This was awesome.
Yes, thank you so much.
Dope Gene. Conversation.
We will leave information on Dr. Weiss down below. If you have any comments, questions, please leave them down below. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget, if you're with us on YouTube, to like, comment, and subscribe. It would be super, super appreciated. And if you're listening to us on the podcast, thank you so much. Leave a rating, right? I think that's what they can do.
Yep.
Leave a rating with comments, suggestions. If you want any specific topics, we would be more than happy to accommodate and join.
All right, bye, everybody.
Bye.